Hey everyone, Matt here on another edition of Ask Ron. Ron, how are you doing today?
I'm great, man. We have such beautiful weather down here right now. Not a cloud in the sky and gorgeous.
Yep, that is for sure. Super nice out. All right, we have quite a few questions, so let's go ahead and jump right into them.
Let's do it.
The first few are from Tony and Angie up in Ohio.
As it should be.
All right, they say, in this ever-changing world, what is not working so well now that was working 6 months ago, other than having sellers get a HELOC or refinancing to get their equity out?
Well, I don't know why you put those two together. They don't have anything to do with each other. They've been doing that for a lot of years. What's working or not working now, it was working 6 months ago. I can't think of anything. I just really can't. We adapt with the times, but nothing stands out actually.
Nice. All right. Their next question is, in the first pages of the Quick Start manual, you say that the plan is to build our cash flow with easy residential deals we can duplicate every month while simultaneously looking for paper deals attached to both residential and commercial properties you can uncover in the process. How do we get training on how to look for and evaluate paper deals?
Well, first of all, I did not say that. I said that there is the world of real estate, and then there's the world of paper. I did not say that you should get into paper. I said it's out there. As to how you get training on it, gosh, I don't know because I don't do it anymore. I used to have an event called Paper Power, and I just haven't taught paper in quite a while. So you're just going to have to do your own searching on that. I can't even think of people that are actually teaching paper out there right now, to be honest with you. But I don't think it's going to be hard for you to find somebody that's got some kind of course on it. But it's not really your concern right now, guys. You need to get to work getting houses going and getting your cash flow going, and don't worry about trying to branch off into something else and chasing another shiny object. Just get your system working. You've been at it long enough right now that where you should have some deals in the system and working and closed. And if you haven't, you should stop and ask yourself, what am I not doing that I taught you to do, and focus on that and get some help if you need it.
That's great advice. All right. Their next question is, as I mentioned before, I am using Dreams to send follow-up emails and texts to no's I've spoken to, and they remain no's. I use AI to create the messages and then load them in. In your opinion, how often should I send follow-up messages?
Well, that's going to depend on what kind of seller you're following up on. If you're following up on someone that's in foreclosure, you need to hit them every week or two, depending on how long it's going to take in your state to get them through the system. If you're just hitting people who said no, not more than once a month, that's plenty. And it should be all automatic. I heard you say you load them in using AI. I don't know why. I mean, Dreams comes with already existing copy. If you want to change it, fine, but it's not that big a deal. Once you change it, it's changed for all the rest of them, as long as you tag the messages to the entry point and what kind of seller they are. For example, if I've had a conversation with them and they said no, that's a little different follow-up than if I can't even reach them. That's a different follow-up. You're trying to get them on the phone. So you've only got, I don't know, 4 or 5 different kinds of sellers that situations that you're going to deal with, but the follow-up has to match the front end.
There we go.
And you should be doing it automatically, guys. There should be no work for you to do once you get it set up, except have your VA load the names in and put them in the category that they belong in. Your VAs will do all the work for you. You just feed them the leads and tell them what the front end source is.
Yeah, that's right. All right, moving on to the next question, Ron. They say, what are your thoughts on getting Dunn's Dun and Bradstreet number and a step towards establishing business credit for my LLC?
Well, I don't know. I've never got Dun and Bradstreet, nor do I care if I ever get it, because to me, it's a waste of time and energy. I don't need credibility from Dun and Bradstreet. If you're having a credibility problem, it's coming out of your mouth that's creating your problem. It's what you say or not say. Dun and Bradstreet Chamber of Commerce, who cares? It takes me seconds to screen a seller to find out if I can work with them or not. And if I can work with them, in my entire life, I haven't ever had anybody ask me if I was a member of the Chamber of Commerce or Dun & Bradstreet. You guys are looking for things to do that aren't going to accomplish anything except take up your time and keep you from focusing on getting the deals, which is what you should be doing. How many leads are you generating? Are you following up on them correctly? Have you mastered the closing call yet? Worry about that. Forget about all the other crap.
Right.
Sounds like I'm in a bad mood today. I'm not really in a bad mood. I might be before I get to answering their questions.
All right. We're moving on to the next question.
Right.
Tony and Angie say, in regards to visiting the house after the agreement is signed, how do we handle shutting down any marketing that they have going? Zillow, online ads, etc. Do we do that with them right there or give them the homework of doing it?
All right. Well, if you can do it right there, that's fine. If you can't, you need to ask them to do it. But, don't be upset if they don't want to do it until after you've closed. And if that's the case, that's the case. But you do want to do that. And it's good that you brought that up because a lot of people forget that. Houses on Zillow and they leave it on Zillow and that might interfere with your ability to sell it at a higher price than you bought it for. So I do want to get it down from all that crap as fast as I can. But, you can't do it. They got to do it. So if I can get it done there, then you'll know it's done. Because if you don't, you won't ever know it's done. So you have to go checking on everything. You could at least get a list of the sites that they have their house on for sure. And then you can check on it.
Yep, that's right. All right. Their next question is, Ron, I just finished your awesome Mastering the Phone course. In there, you mentioned the idea of taking someone who is insisting on a retail sale, asking them what they'll do if they do not sell, and if I'm a realtor offering to list it for them. Angie is considering getting her license back in effect. What do I say differently in my closing call script since I just told them I was not a realtor and there would be no commissions? Can I say that she is an agent, but I am not?
Well, Tony, you told them that you're not a realtor. That is true. You don't need to get that realtor language involved unless they decide they want to list it. Then you disclose that your wife is a realtor. There's not really a problem with that. Now, if that really concerns you, you might want to check with your attorney in Ohio, because in some places, if the husband and wife are jointly operating the investor business and the realtor, the one with a license, is having conversations with sellers and buyers like a realtor does, then your broker is probably going to want it disclosed right up front. But I honestly don't see the need. It's got to be disclosed, but it doesn't have to be disclosed till the point of a meaningful relationship, in my opinion. But I am not your Ohio attorney, so you need to check that out on your own.
That was a good question. All right. Our next question is, in making the decision to do an option with the seller who is not open to doing terms, how much of a discount from the ARV would it take to get you interested?
Oh, that's going to depend on the size of the house and what I think is the sellability of the house and the neighborhood. To option houses, I mean, I never do that. I've never done that on the lower end houses because it's just as easy to sign a purchase and sale agreement. All right. This option thing is going to be a little more difficult. The seller knows that you're not the buyer and that you just want to tie up their house. So, frankly, I wouldn't even mention the word option if it was me. I just get a contract with a long-term closing on it, say 60 or 90 days. And your only exit strategy, if it's an option, is to sell it to owner occupants for all cash who can go qualify for a loan if needed. So that's the downside of an option. The answer to your first question, I want at least 20% equity in it, and then the house needing absolutely no repairs to even lay a hand on it. And then you gotta prep, somewhere along the line, you gotta have a conversation with the seller that instead of an option, remember where I taught you the axe deal. where the seller is fully aware that you're going to go find a buyer that you like to put in the house. In this case, it's going to have to be a qualified cash buyer, and you need 90 days. And of course, that in other words, you're getting a purchase and sale agreement for 90 days, but you're cluing the seller in that your intent is to go out and put somebody in the house. And sometimes that's okay, and sometimes it's not. The seller's got to have a good reason to take the house, let you take the house off the market. So that might be a little hard sale in a hot market, but it is an option that you can explore if everything else you're trying to do doesn't work. So in other words, they don't want terms, fine, offer them all cash, but get plenty of time to close, and tell them you're going to go into your network to find qualified buyers, and as well as get out to the public and find them. And of course, they're going to ask you, well, why don't I just list it with a realtor? So you better be prepared to answer that question. And the answer to that is, well, because I'm going to give it my 100% focus. It's the only house I'm working on day in and day out. And I have a network of people that might be interested in the house. So really, you have nothing to lose, Mr. Seller, except a little bit of time. And my intent is to bring you a cash buyer. Now, remember, your cash buyer better be paying more than you're paying the seller. Don't forget that part. Okay. You're working for free. But take a $500,000 house, 20% equity in it, or even something like that, close to that, is worth doing it because you don't have any risk. And you don't have to rehab it. So it's that number is going to be up to you. The lower price of the house, the bigger the percentage. The higher the price, the smaller the percentage. I mean, you'd take 10% discount on $1 million house, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think I would.
List it for tie it up for 900,000, sell it for 950 or whatever. So good thing is there's no risk. Also, good thing is you learn the market on the higher end houses. But bad thing is you got to make sure that the seller understands what you're doing.
Right. All right, Ron. We've come to our last question from Tony and Angie.
All right.
They say, can you review all of the exit strategies that we can pursue once we have an option on a house?
Yeah. Sell it for cash. Review over. Well, think about it. You can't lease option it because you don't have the right to put a tenant in there. So you can't sell it with owner financing. Well, you could sell it with owner financing if you get the seller's permission to sell it to you with owner financing, and you do a wrap. But that ain't likely. Okay, if you option the house, you're going to pay all cash for it. That's your only exit, sell it for cash. That's why I don't talk about it a lot. It's not my favorite. It's not my favorite way to make money in real estate.
All right, Ron. We're moving on to the next question. This one's from Derek in Pennsylvania. Derek, go Birds.
Derek.
All right, Derek says, I have gotten some leads from sellers in my hometown back in Michigan. My primary question to someone who will be boots on the ground is, what do you want? For my sake, what is it reasonable to expect to pay for someone who will go out to the house and take pictures for their time and gas?
Well, the easiest way, I think, would be to just pay them whatever they want per hour to do that. And, if you're asking me that question on this forum, it means you're focusing on the wrong things to begin with. Okay. As you know, I teach you to, let them make you an offer. And that's exactly what I would do. So look, there's no way to measure how much time it's going to take. It ain't going to take much, but maybe you can tell me what you want per hour to do this job. And who cares what it is anyway? I don't care. What is it? $10, $15, $20? Who cares? They're not going to be working very long. Focus on making offers to people who want to sell their house, and all those little details we'll fill in as you go along.
Right. Moving on to the next question, Ron. This one's from Tim in Kentucky. He actually has two questions. Tim's first question is, you mentioned several times in your courses that the importance of having an attorney present. For what situations does your attorney need to be present, and when is it not necessary?
Well, obviously, if you're not going to use an attorney, then you're going to use a title company. And when it's not necessary is when you're wholesaling a house, you're not even buying it, putting under contract and assigning a contract, which we've done several of this year. You don't need an attorney for that. Any title company can do that for you because you're not going to buy the house. But if you're going to go pay cash for a house, I'd strongly suggest you get an attorney to close it, because you never know what you're going to get into if you don't have somebody representing you. Yeah, of course, you're going to buy title insurance, but just remember your title company. is not going to is not your attorney. Okay, they're not working for you; they're working for their underwriter. But most people who pay cash don't even use an attorney. And when selling cash, I don't need an attorney for that. Just give me a check. That's all I care about. Okay, and we're done, and I'm out of here. But anything that comes with an ongoing relationship with the seller or the buyer, you must close with an attorney. And in other words, that means if I'm buying it with owner financing, when I'm buying it with subject to, I'm leasing it with an option buy, and I'm selling it on a lease option or with owner financing. Anytime that relationship is extended out, you need an attorney in case they want to come back and claim you took advantage of them or whatever. The attorney's going to be there. The attorney did the documents. You have the upper hand. You have the proper documents in the file. Very hard for somebody to come in and get you if you're the one with the proper documents and an attorney closed it. So, I always teach, always prepare for court. And that simply means get the documents in your file. I've given them to you in my system. Your attorney will polish them up as you use them. And I saw a question here about that. You do not need to take a document to an attorney before you even put it under contract. Look, there's no document that I've got that is not going to work where you live. But sometimes they have to add something. Can't even think of a time when they'd want to take something out. So the worst case is you fix the document before you close on it, whatever that document is, and then the next time you'll know the way your attorney wants to see it. But to go sit in front of an attorney and have him review your documents for what? Okay, go get it under contract and then worry about your document. and that's going to take a little bit of time. To be honest, I don't remember ever seeing a student that's coming into the business that fills out the contract correctly the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 times. Okay, so that's why you need to get trained on what to put in the contract, but then you need somebody to look at the contract before you go submitting, and that's what our mentors do. And by the way, if you're a master watching this, I've got a new service out that's absolutely free called a transaction coordinator. I want to see all your closing documents going in and going out before they presented to the other side, but at least a couple days prior to when you're closing. And I'll look at them and I'll show you what's wrong. I'm just appalled by the mistakes that people make that are inside of attorneys' firms and title companies that are supposed to know about real estate. They handle millions of dollars worth of real estate and they make some of the dumbest mistakes. I don't know what they call training nowadays for these folks, but I personally haven't had a closing. I can't even remember the last closing that I did that we didn't have to correct something on the closing documents. I really can't. And sometimes huge mistakes that would cost me, they'd have to fix their own mistakes, but who wants to go through that crap? I might not be able to sell it till they fix the mistake. For example, and sometimes it's just simple money mistakes. For example, I closed the house that I bought off the MLS, I think it was MLS recently, and they charged me $300 for a survey. I didn't even order a survey. There's no survey on the contract. They just stuck it on there. In fact, I haven't even seen a survey. That's the kind of stuff you got to look for. And then I look at the note and the mortgage or the deed of trust, because rarely are they filled out properly. I can't blame attorneys for not knowing everything that I know, but they're supposed to go by the contract. Mm-hmm. And make sure that the closing documents fit the contract. For example, late penalty. I know I sold a property in Michigan this couple months ago, and I bought it on land contract, which is common, which means the seller holds the deed until I pay the seller off. Okay, so now this year I get a buyer for it, and he wants me to take back $360,000 worth of a note. Comes to closing with cash, and I got to take back $360 over a period of 2 years. That's $180,000 per year that I still got to collect from the seller, this buyer. The closing agent on the documents, on the deed, filled out the deed from my seller to my buyer, which is ludicrous. My buyer does not get the deed until the buyer pays me off. You would think somebody living in a land contract state would know that. If they'd have deeded the property directly to my buyer, my buyer could say, I don't owe him anything. I got the deed, I got the title, and
Yeah.
they'd be correct. So the stupid mistake like that, how can that be in a company that is supposed to be there to prepare proper legal documents? And they go on and on and on and on. Here's another one while I'm on a roll here. Almost every time I buy a property into a trust, okay, it's whether I put the LLC at the top of the trust as is, or if I put as trustee after it, either way, I instruct a closing agent to close it in ABC LLC as trustee. And I emphasize it, make sure the words as trustee are after the LLC. And then I emphasize it again. And guess what happens? I get the closing documents and it just says the LLC, there's no as trustee after it.
Mhm.
Now, for those of you who don't understand what that means that my LLC now owns the property, not the trust that I wanted that LLC to be the trustee of. Totally, man, this totally screws up everything. And I promise you that at least half of the time, that's the first thing I want to look at. Do they have the owner of the property correct on the paperwork? Usually they do not. People inside the title companies, they don't understand this trust stuff. I get all of that. But, at least they could follow simple instructions.
You would hope so.
All right. My rant is over. What's next?
Well, I think you answered Tim's second question. He said, should I share with my attorney the forms you have available on the
Yes.
Gold Club?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. If they wants to change them, fine. Let them change it. Let them add. I don't care. He's going to add disclosures and disclaimers anyway. But
Yep.
be careful be careful. I don't know if, I guess, Tim, you've been to my quick start school. You know that I went over those contracts, especially that contract to lease with an option to buy from the seller. Man, your attorney is never going to pick out all that cool stuff that I put in that agreement. He's just not going to do it. So if they want to change agreements on you, at least go through my agreements, and the ones that I got in a square with a check mark out beside or paragraphs you better pay attention to, and transfer them to your attorney to add to your agreement if they want to change the whole agreement. I mean, look, you can't blame them for changing the whole agreement, to an agreement that they're familiar with. I would too, but you got to be careful if you let them do that, because they might leave out some very important stuff. And in fact, if you remember paragraph 2B in my purchase and sale agreement, that thing is laid out so simple. All you got to do is check what applies. Is it a due on sale? Is it PITI? And don't forget that last line. It says the interest rate will be adjusted down if the principal amount of the payment. If the payment is not enough to cover the interest, the rate will be adjusted down until it is. Ain't no attorney going to have that. I wrote that paragraph, and I know it's not going to be in any other attorneys unless it was swiped from me, which actually usually is. All right.
All right. Well, that answers both of Tim's questions. The next one we have is from from Kevin, who is with us in Florida. Kevin says, you and Bob Bloom have made it clear on how critical having the proper business formation is. Assuming that some deals have been done in a poorly created entity, what can be done?
Well, that's a good question, because most people out there who have LLCs have poorly created entities. They just don't know it. And they won't know it until some attorney rips it apart in a lawsuit. What can be done is easy. You can send your LLC operating agreement to Bob Bloom and he can fix it, or he can just do you another one, and he'll do you another one. You don't have to kill a corporation or anything like that to get a new operating agreement. He'll provide the documentation in there that just supersedes the original document. And he'll probably charge you the same whether he forms a new one or repairs yours. But there might be a reason why you don't want a new one. You want to keep your old one, depending on what else you got in it. So just send your operating agreement to Bob, and I don't know, he charges $8.95 for a brand new LLC. But that's a whole lot more than just filling out a form and sending it to the state. Bob's got the provisions in there to protect you in the LLC, and he knows things like the LLC has to have a purpose. Or it's just it's worthless. So let him do that for you, and then you can sleep at night knowing that you got a real expert doing everything they can to protect you against somebody penetrating your LLC. And along the way, you're probably going to learn things that you should not do, such as pay your personal bills out of your LLC. That's a no-no. If you're doing that, you don't even have an LLC. You might as well do a new one, because if somebody were to attack you and find that out, it's easy for them to say this is an alter ego, and basically the LLC is worthless. So that's the first thing any predator is going to look for. They're going to subpoena your bank records and find out what you're paying out of this LLC. So here comes your family car payment. Here comes your groceries. You don't have an LLC.
Yeah.
That's a good question. What you do is you take money out as a distribution, put it in your personal account, then you pay your personal bills.
That's right. All right, Ron, we've come to our last question of the day. This one's from Javed, who's also with us in Florida. Javed says, is there a clause that can be put in the agreement with tenant buyer and finance buyer to safeguard from filing bankruptcy that may cause a problem collecting payments?
There is no clause you can use to circumvent the rights of another person. You cannot stop someone from filing bankruptcy. All right. But don't think it's the end of the world, for crying out loud. In fact, it's kind of irrelevant to you unless you've got a buyer who wants to cash you out right now. And even if you did, all that your attorney's got to do is present it to the bankruptcy attorney, and the bankruptcy attorney is going to approve the sale, because you're getting ready to pay off a creditor that's part of the bankruptcy, and that's what the trustee's supposed to be doing. So, you know, don't worry about things like that. Now, I will tell you, bankruptcy is going to be a bigger problem if you're buying on lease option, because the deed's still in the seller's name. But even I don't think that's a big problem either. Because if you're about ready to pay them off, then it's you're not gonna have any trouble getting the trustee to approve the sale. And think about it: if I'm putting the lease option tenant buyer in the house and the seller files bankruptcy, that doesn't mean I'm going to lose my house. You know, I have rights too. All right. And if the seller's not getting anything out of it, there's no reason for the trustee to challenge it. They're only interested in collecting money for their creditors. And then there's no money for them to collect there. They really have no reason to challenge it. So, you know, don't worry about bankruptcies. But the sooner you can get the deed, the less chance you got of it affecting you.
That's right.
I'm not saying it can't, because there's still a mortgage underneath, and they're going to name that mortgage into bankruptcy. But that's a problem. That's a job for your attorney to handle.
All right. I think that's all we had for today.
That's it. Okay.
That was it.
Well, you guys have a great Christmas, and I'm looking forward to the new year. And maybe you should be too. Maybe this is the time where you decide that, okay, I've had enough. I'm going to get out there and put it in high gear and get some deals going. And then, of course, you can join my wall of fame when you send me a testimonial with your picture of your check on it. Come down to Jacksonville. We got them all over our walls.
That's right.
See you next week.